Okay, I'm coming to you from the future, and our Sub-Zero 590 refrigerator has been fixed. And we were struggling with an issue with the freezer. The freezer wasn't getting cold enough, and I thought I may have fixed it in a previous video that I posted on YouTube, but the problem came back. So I've taken that video down. I put the content in this one. There's some troubleshooting and disassembly steps. But yeah, I was afraid that we were going to have to replace this refrigerator, and we looked at replacements. This is a 48-inch side-by-side. This thing would be $14,000 to get a replacement. And even, I don't even know if we would have to wait a period of time for it. So that's what we're looking at. And I knew if I didn't fix it, that's what we were going to do, is replace it. And I thought about calling a technician, but this was built in 1994. This is generations old. It's a great refrigerator. I love it, but to have it repaired, I know a technician would just be like, no, you got to replace it. So that's what we're looking at. So the problem turned out to be the defrost terminator. And that's a component in the defrost system of this freezer. And in this video, you're going to see the steps that led to me figuring out that that was the problem. And we ruled out some other stuff along the way. So if you're having an issue with your freezer and you think it's related to the defrost system, hopefully some of the content in this video is going to help you, and at the very least the disassembly of getting to the parts should help. But anyway, in this case, this $30 defrost terminator saved me $14,000. That's the way I look at it. But anyway, let's get on with the video, and we'll start with the disassembly. I'm going to remove this light cover first. That exposes two Phillips heads. There's two down here. Alright, so we've got the screws removed. And look at this. Interesting. So the evaporator is all frozen up, which means the fan, let's see if you can see the fan. Yeah, so the fan is working fine, but this is probably so blocked with ice. Okay, I just want to show you this. This is the air duct that cold air gets pulled up behind, because this fan pulls the air. So that's the way it circulates. So there's two screws over here. You loosen that, you fold it down. And these things are kind of like riveted. You're not going to pop those. So the thing to do is remove these rails. And the way to do that is you just get a screwdriver on each one of these and remove the entire rail. Pull the whole thing out as an assembly. Okay, so we got that air duct out. We're gonna pull out the pins here, and let's see, is this gonna drop for us? Yeah, now we've got a light connection, of course. There's a connector though. Okay, so there are two lugs here. White in front, yellow in back. Look at this. I don't understand what all that metallic kind of colored sediment is. Alright, so now I want to remove this plate. That looks like these screws, 3 here, 3 on the wall. Let me do that. Okay, I can't get at the wire harness, but I want to remove this frame. So there's a screw right here. Alright, I think you can see there's a screw back there. I'm going to remove that. So look at that. There's 2 screws right under this motor right there. So let me get those. Alright, so now it's separated. I can get this plate out. what is going on here. This plate has this piece. That's a little dangerous. Dragging it across the coils there. The paint or powder coat or whatever this is on the walls, it basically is flaking off. You see, this is the stuff that I'm seeing, little flakes and spots. Okay, next move is I remove these two screws. I go to pull on this. The fan assembly is on this plate. It should pull off, but I have this wire is preventing it. So what I've got to do is get this connector out here and disconnect it. Looks like there's two wings here, so you squeeze on them. If you can get your hands in there. There, see? I just squeezed on it. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay, there's some foam attached to it. Okay, I'm going to remove these two screws and remove that plate. Alright, so what I did was I lowered the evaporator. There's two screws here, they go there and there. And this thing kind of hangs a little bit on a couple posts that are in the wall. So I also kind of took the opportunity to clean up the freezer here. So I did put some rust treatment on that rust spot. So the way defrost works on these freezers is you've got a defrost timer that initiates a defrost cycle once, twice a day, whatever. So that puts out a power to this heating element. This heats up and removes any ice buildup. So there's one other component in that system. It's called the heating terminator, the defrost terminator. And the way the defrost cycle terminates is it can either do it by the defrost timer turning it off, or based on temperature, the defrost terminator could shut it off. So that terminator is basically looking at temperature. When it gets to a certain temperature, it cuts power to the heating element. So if that fails, we could have a problem with the defrost cycle. If the defrost timer isn't working properly, or a wiring issue, or a power issue, and we're not getting power to the heating element, that could be an issue. And the heating element itself could be an issue. I'm gonna look at the wiring diagram and see if I can test the heating element. If I can disconnect a connector and put an ohmmeter on it and look at what we get there. But I do know that the terminator, the defrost terminator, is in the back here. There's a round device there that's sensing temperature. That is really difficult to get to because the evaporator is so close to the wall, and I don't want to pull on it anymore because the refrigerant lines are being stressed right now, just holding it in this position. If I start pulling on it, I risk damaging that. So I'm not ready to take a risk like that yet because we don't know. Maybe it was just a case of ice buildup over a long period of time. This thing might just work fine if I put it together. So the plan is I can't test the terminator. I might be able to test the heating element, and the defrost timer is up here with a condenser, so I can take a look at that. Okay, first thing we have to do is remove this cover here, and that's just simply a matter of kind of going up, pulling, swinging out the bottom, and then sliding this way. All right, so we've got things cleaned up a little bit, so we can start to get in and get to the defrost timer. Now here's the defrost timer. First off, you've got your power control right here. This controls all input power to the refrigerator. So once you hit this, okay, we cut all power. So freezer, refrigerator, nothing's getting power anymore. So now I can start to remove everything safely, and let's do that now. Okay, after removing these two screws, not this one, but these two, I'm noticing that I can actually get this plate out, which is going to give me access to the defrost timer. So I don't think I need to do this bottom, but let's see. Now here's the defrost timer. So if I remove these two screws, I expect to be able to pull this back, and then there's a connector on it. So let me do that now. Okay, so we can now see what's going on down here, and just slide this connector this way. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, before I remove the connector, I just want to show you something. I'm just looking at the lugs here and the connector. So this lug should be neutral. This white wire, that should be a neutral connection to the defrost timer. This yellow is incoming hot. Okay, so that's in the middle of this purple and blue. And when it goes into a defrost cycle, it sends power to one of these two. I'm not quite sure which one. And then in normal, when it's not defrosting, it puts power to the other. Okay, let me show you what I'm doing here. So I've got my ohm meter connected to pin 1 and pin 4, okay? And right now, you can see I've got 0 ohms, so no resistance. So right now, power would be going from lug 1 to lug 4, and that's the normal refrigeration cycle for the freezer. So everything gets power, evaporator, compressor, everything's running, the fan, blah, blah, blah. And if I keep spinning this, it should cut out. And then if I measure ohms continuity on lug 2, we should also get 0 ohms. So let's see, I'm going to spin this. I think it's going to click when it gets to the defrost cycle. Okay, you heard that click. Interesting, it clicked, but we're still getting 0 ohms. Let's just make sure my connection's good here. Okay, so now we've got infinite. So somehow those lugs must have been touching. Okay, so now we're getting no continuity between 1 and 4, which is what's supposed to happen. So now the refrigeration cycle stops. And it looks like now we have continuity between 1 and 2. All right, so that means the defrost cycle starts. Now, if I keep spinning, now it comes out of defrost, and we're back at infinite, and we should have continuity here, which we do. Okay, so this is working. If I manually spin this, it is switching back and forth to the contacts. But that doesn't mean that the timer is spinning, right? Because, again, this has got a mechanical timer. So you'd have a neutral connection here, hot here, and this is a 120 volt mechanical timer that just spins slowly over time. And I can't really test that. I guess I could connect it and look at this, come back every half hour and look to see if this is spinning. But on Amazon, I found a cross-reference to this to like a third-party part that's like $15. Pretty commonly used defrost timer. They're used in a lot of different models, so it's pretty cheap. So for 15 bucks, I'm going to replace this, and we'll see what we got after that. Because if it is putting power out to the heater element on the evaporator, then the only other thing it could be is that limit switch, or the cutoff that we talked about in the first video. And I hope it's not that, because I don't know how to get to it.
All right, so I lost a little bit of video footage, so I wanted to get you up to speed. What I did next was I put the defrost timer back in the system, and my thought was I would just advance it with a tool, you know, put a screwdriver in there and spin it, and then when it goes into defrost, see if I'm getting heat on the element. So I had to get the freezer to temperature because of the terminator switch. I had to make sure I got it down below whatever it was, 45 degrees. But that's what I did. I ran the freezer. I spun the defrost timer. The evaporator fan turns off. It stops the refrigeration cycle and it goes into defrost. At that point, I would put my fingers on the element. I used an IR thermometer. Nothing was getting warm. So I knew that it probably wasn't the defrost timer in any way. It had to be that terminator, or I suspected the terminator or the heater element. So I kind of needed to troubleshoot that next. Okay, so I knew I had to get that terminator out to test it. So once I kind of understood that it had to be done, I figured out a way to do it. It really wasn't as difficult. You could see in the earlier part of the video where it was. I just had to get that evaporator away from the wall a little bit more and just kind of reach my hand back there and feel around, and I knew how it clipped, so I just had to kind of work it until it unclipped. So it's doable. Anyway, so I got it out and now I can test it.
Okay, so I've got the freezer running right now. So the cold control is calling for cooling. I'm going to spin this to defrost. Okay, we're in a defrost cycle. Let's turn on this voltage tester. Ah, look at that. Okay, so I got power on that leg, no power on that leg. Now this is not cold enough to have closed that, but the fact that I'm getting power there, that's a good sign. I'm gonna pull this thing out. I'm gonna put it in a freezer. I've got another refrigerator, I can freeze it, and then I can measure continuity once it gets cold enough, and let's see if this is closing. Okay, so I've got to get the leads out, and there's a connector on this, and it's really hard to see back there. I took my camera and took a picture to see what it looks like, and there's a tie wrap that's got this all kind of folded and secured, so I've got to cut that, release it, and then I should be able to get to the connector. All right, so I just got this tie wrap clipped out, and let's see, there might be another one. I'm hoping I can get to this connector. Let me go back in.
I just want to give you as much info as possible if you've got to get at that terminator connector. This is a shot from in back of the evaporator with an iPhone pointing out to the front. That red tie wrap will need to be clipped, and then that'll free up all that wiring. The connector for the terminator is on the left, that white connector. The one on the right is for the heating element.
Okay, here's the terminator. I'm gonna go put it in the freezer right now. Okay, I just pulled this out of the freezer. And I'm hoping not to get continuity. And look at that. We got an open circuit. And this thing's 20 degrees. All right, that's the part. That's the problem right there. So let me order order a replacement, and I'm gonna do this repair. All right, so we just proved out that this Terminator's bad, and I've got one on order, but real quick for sanity check, I'm just gonna, I clip these leads. I'm gonna wrap these together and short out these two leads, which will allow that defrost element to energize during a defrost cycle. So it's basically just bypassing this. The same thing that this would do when it gets to a low temperature. It closes the connection between these two. That's what I'm going to do here. And let's just see if that element gets hot to the touch. All right, we have the freezer off. Let's put the freezer on. Oh yeah, it's getting hot. That's it, that's it. All right, here's the new part. That's the part number. It actually had an old part number in the parts diagram that I had, but it crosses to this new one, so they must have updated it over the years. But now it's just a matter of trying to get it back to where it was. All right, so I have the new Terminator attached to the back here, and I've got this hung. I just need to secure it, but wanted to show you, here's the old one. You can see on the surface there's like a groove, and that groove is to go against one of these refrigerant loops in the back, and then this clip clips like this, which there, like that, to secure it against that pipe. So a little tricky, but you know, I was able to do it. Shouldn't have a problem. Just, you know, with proper lighting, you'll be able to see. All right, so let me start putting everything back. All right, so we're done with the video. The freezer's been fixed. I hope some of the content in this video helps you guys. You may not have the exact same problem, but we kind of covered how to understand what's going on with the defrost and what components are involved. So if you are having a problem with the freezer, hopefully some of the stuff in this video helps. Good luck.